The alarm screamed through Defense Station Omega-7 like a wounded animal. Commander Zixtal's forearms moved quickly across her control panel, her insect-like eyes scanning the data that flooded her screens. In 30 years of military service, she had never heard the emergency alert sound with such urgency. "Report!" She clicked in her native tongue, then switched to Galactic Standard as her mixed-species crew scrambled at their stations. Lieutenant Velmar, a young crystalline officer, turned from his sensor station. His body flickered with nervous blue light. "Commander, we have an unauthorized vessel in the system. It just appeared." Zixtal's mandibles clicked together sharply. "What do you mean, appeared? Ships don't just appear, Lieutenant. They drop. Out of hyperspace, they use jump gates, they follow physics." "Ma'am, this ship didn't use any known method. It was just not here and then it was here. Our sensors show no hyperspace wake, no energy buildup, no warning at all." The commander moved to the main display screen. Her compound eyes focused on the single red dot that showed the intruder ship. It was small, maybe a light cruiser by the size readings, but something about it made her skin crawl. Distance and heading. 7 million kilometers in closing, ma'am. Current course puts it on a direct path to New Kethvar. New Kethvar. Home to 12 billion civilians, the most populated world in the sector. Zixtal felt ice form in her stomach. Ship design? Registry? Anything in our database? Ensign Kepler, barely out of the academy, spoke up from the communications station. "No. Match in any database, Commander. The ship's energy signature is strange. It's using frequencies that our computers say shouldn't exist." "That's impossible." "Yes, ma'am. But the readings are consistent across all sensor arrays." Zixtal studied the approaching vessel. It moved, in a straight line. No course corrections, no communication attempts, like it owned the space it traveled through. "Hail them. Standard first contact protocols." Kepler worked his controls. "Broadcasting on all standard frequencies, ma'am." No response. "Try emergency channels, military frequencies, everything." Still, nothing. The ship continued its steady approach toward New Kethvar. "Time to intercept?" "At current speed, 14 minutes to planetary orbit, Commander." 14 minutes. Not enough time to evacuate a world. Barely enough time to scramble the defense fleet. Zixtal made a decision she hoped she wouldn't regret. "Battle stations. Launch all fighters. Signal the fleet to converge on our position." The station erupted into controlled chaos. Warning lights bathed everything in red. The deep hum of charging weapons filled the air. Through the main viewport, Zixtal could see the sleek fighters launching from their bays, their engines bright points of light in the darkness. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Zixtal of Defense Station Omega-7, she broadcast personally. "You have entered restricted space without authorization. Change course immediately or we will consider you hostile." The response was silence. "Fire a warning shot across their bow," she ordered. The station's main plasma cannon discharged. A brilliant beam of energy lanced through space, passing just ahead of the intruder ship. Standard procedure. A clear message that could not be misunderstood. The ship's response made Zixtal question her sanity. It stopped. Not slowed down, not decelerated. It simply stopped moving. Instantly. From significant velocity to complete stillness in less than a heartbeat. The laws of physics suggested that the crew should have been liquefied by the forces involved. "What in the name of the void was that?" Velmar whispered. Before anyone could answer, the ship did something even stranger. It moved sideways, not turned and moved in a new direction. It slid through space like it was on rails, maintaining its original orientation while traveling perpendicular to its previous course. "Sensor reading?" Zixtal's voice was steady, but her hands shook. "Commander," Velmar's voice cracked. "According to our sensors, the ship is now in 2 places at once." "That's impossible." "Yes, ma'am. But we're tracking it at coordinates 547.3 by 229.7, and also at coordinates 551.1 by 233.2, simultaneously." Zixtal closed her eyes and opened them again. The readings didn't change. On her screen, the red dot had become 2 red dots, both showing the same ship signature. "Are our sensors malfunctioning?" I've run 3 complete diagnostics, ma'am. All systems functioning normally. The 2 dots suddenly became 1 again, positioned exactly between where they had been before. Commander, Kepler's voice was barely audible. I'm receiving a transmission. Every being on the bridge turned to look at him. The young Vorthak officers. Chiton had gone pale. What does it say? It's in perfect galactic standard, ma'am. No accent, no translation errors, like whoever sent it learned our language from native speakers. Play it. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, professional, and completely alien in its confidence. Not alien in species, but alien in its complete lack of concern about the weapons aimed at it. This is Captain Elena Martinez of the UES Defiant. I'm here about your little problem with the Devourers. We need to talk now. Silence stretched across the bridge like a physical thing. Every officer stared at the main screen, where the impossible ship waited with the patience of a predator. Zixtal found her voice first. UES? That's not any registry prefix in our database. United Earthship, Velmar whispered. Commander, I've heard that designation before, in archaeological reports. Impossible. Earth died out millions of years ago. Their star went nova. That's what all the records say, ma'am. Zixtal studied the ship on her screen. It had moved again while they talked, now positioned perfectly between the defense station and New Kethvar. Not threatening, but making a point. Captain Martinez, she broadcast, you are in violation of 17 different space traffic regulations. Your ship design is not approved for travel in Council space. You have ignored official orders to change course. The response came immediately. Commander Zixtal, I assume. Your reputation for protecting this sector is well known. I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here to solve one, a big one, the kind that's heading this way right now. What do you mean, heading this way? Check your long-range sensors, Commander. Focus on the system's edge, dark space where you normally don't look because nothing comes from that direction. Zixtal gestured to Velmar, who began adjusting his instruments. His crystalline form suddenly flared bright white with alarm. Commander, multiple contacts bearing 127 Mark IV. They're big, and they're moving fast. How many? 6. No, 8. Wait. His light flickered rapidly as he recalibrated his sensors. 12 vessels, all considerably larger than anything in our database. ETA to system entry. 4 hours. Zixtal felt her world shift. First an impossible human ship, now unknown vessels approaching from dark space. Today was not going according to plan. Captain Martinez, she transmitted, are those ships connected to you? The human's laugh was not reassuring. Oh no, Commander. Those are your Devourers. The ones you've been fighting in secret for 3 years. The ones your High Council pretends don't exist because admitting they do would cause panic. How could this human know about classified Council business? You have a choice, Commander, Captain Martinez continued. You can waste time demanding I follow your regulations, or you can let me help you deal with the real problem. Because in about 4 hours those ships out there are going to try to do to New Kethvar what they did to the Kress homeworld. Zixtal's blood ran cold. The Kress homeworld had been sterilized 6 months ago. 12 billion beings dead in a matter of hours. Officially, it had been listed as a stellar anomaly. How do you know about Kress? Commander, my people know about a lot of things. We've been watching. We've been learning. And now, whether you want it or not, we're here to help. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of electronics and the distant sound of the defense fleet taking positions around the station. Zixtal looked at the impossible ship on her screen, then at the approaching threats at the system's edge. She had never faced a decision this big, this important, with so little information to guide her. Captain Martinez, she finally said, I think we need to talk. The docking bay of Defense Station Omega-7 had never hosted a ship quite like the Defiant. As the human vessel settled onto the landing platform, Zixtal noticed it made no sound. No engine noise, no mechanical hums, no hydraulic hiss of landing gear. It simply appeared to float down and gently touch the deck. The ship itself looked wrong. Not damaged or alien, but wrong in the way that things look when they don't follow the same rules as everything else. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and the metal appeared to shift slightly when nobody was looking directly. At its security teams in position? Zixtal asked into her communicator. Yes, ma'am. 50 armed guards surrounding the landing bay, all weapons charged and ready. It seemed like overkill for one person, but after watching the ship violate physics for the last hour, Zixtal wasn't taking chances. A section of the ship's hull simply dissolved, creating an opening where none had existed before. No airlock, no visible door mechanism. The metal just stopped being there. Captain Elena Martinez stepped out. She looked completely, utterly, impossibly human. Not an evolved descendant or a modified subspecies. Human, as if she had walked straight out of one of the ancient archaeological texts. Average height, brown hair pulled back in a simple style, wearing what appeared to be a standard military uniform in dark blue. The only unusual thing about her was how relaxed she seemed. She walked into a room full of weapons pointed at her, like she was arriving for a routine meeting. Commander Zixtal, she said, extending her hand in the ancient human gesture of greeting. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I know the situation is unusual. Zixtal stared at the offered hand. In all her years of dealing with alien species, she had never encountered one that matched historical records so perfectly. You're human, she said, stating the obvious. Yes, but humans are extinct. Your homeworld was destroyed millions of years ago. Captain Martinez smiled. It was a pleasant, friendly expression that somehow made Zixtal more nervous. That's what we wanted everyone to think. Before Zixtal could respond, Dr. Mothek, the station's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward with his scanning equipment. The elderly grackl's feathers were ruffled with scientific excitement. Fascinating. Commander, with your permission, I must conduct a biological scan. If this being is truly human, the scientific implications are extraordinary. Elena nodded, calmly. Of course, Doctor, I understand your curiosity. The scanning beam played over Elena's body for several minutes. Dr. Mothek's feathers gradually settled as he read his instruments, but his excitement only grew. Remarkable. Completely, absolutely baseline human. DNA structure matches archaeological. Samples perfectly. No genetic modifications, no evolutionary changes. It's as if she stepped out of a time capsule from millions of years ago. But that's impossible, Zixtal protested. So are many things about this situation, Elena replied. May we speak privately, Commander? What I have to tell you affects more than just this system. An hour later, Zixtal found herself in the station's main briefing room with Captain Martinez and her senior staff. Elena sat calmly at the conference table, completely at ease despite being surrounded by representatives of 6 different species, all of whom were armed. Let me start with what you already know, Elena began. The beings you call Devourers have been attacking Council worlds for 3 years. They appear without warning, strip away all life from populated planets, then disappear back into deep space. Your military has been unable to stop them, track them, or even significantly damage their ships. Lieutenant Kepler shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The information was classified at the highest levels. How do you know about classified Council operations? Zixtal demanded. Because we've been watching. My people have been observing this galaxy for a very long time, Commander. We know about the Devourers. We know about the Council's secret experiments trying to develop new weapons. We know about the evacuation plans being prepared for the core worlds. Elena's casual revelation of state secrets sent a chill through the room. If humans knew this much about Council affairs, what else did they know? Are you spying on us? Dr. Mothek asked. Not spying, Doctor. Protecting. There's a difference. Protecting us from what? Elena was quiet for a moment as if deciding how much to reveal. The Devourers aren't the real threat. They're scouts. Advance units testing your defenses, learning your capabilities. The real threat is what sent them. She touched a device on her wrist. A holographic display appeared above the conference table, showing star charts that were far more detailed than anything in Council databases. We call it the Convergence, Elena continued. An intelligence from outside this galaxy that consumes entire stellar civilizations. The Devourers are just its advanced scouts determining which galaxies are worth harvesting. Zixtal studied the hologram. It showed galactic movement patterns, stellar alignments, and what appeared to be progression, routes through space. If you know about this threat, why haven't you warned us before now? Because until recently, the Convergence wasn't interested in this galaxy. You were too primitive, too scattered, not worth the energy expenditure to reach you. And now, something has changed. The Devourers have reported back that this galaxy contains resources worth claiming. The Convergence has decided to take action. Elena touched her device again. The hologram changed, showing massive structures moving through deep space between galaxies. These images were taken by our long-range reconnaissance ships 6 months ago. The Convergence fleet is already traveling toward your galaxy. Estimated arrival time 18 months. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the holographic representations of ships that dwarfed anything they had ever seen. Each one was larger than most space stations. How many ships? Velmar whispered. Current count is over 10,000 vessels, with more joining. The fleet as it travels. 10,000? Zixtal couldn't hide her shock. The entire Council fleet numbered less than 800 ships. Commander, you asked why we haven't contacted you before. The answer is simple. We've been hoping we wouldn't. Need to. My people have been fighting threats like the Convergence for a very long time. We've developed methods for dealing with them. But this situation has grown beyond what we can handle alone. Dr. Mothek leaned forward. Captain, you keep referring to your people as if humanity still exists as a civilization. Our records clearly show Earth was destroyed. Elena's smile returned, that same pleasant expression that made everyone nervous. Doctor, Earth was never our only world. We've been expanding through the galaxy for millions of years. We've just been very good at staying hidden. Hidden where? Our surveys have mapped every system within 500 light-years. We've never found any trace of human colonies. You found exactly what we wanted you to find. Before anyone could ask what that meant, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the briefing room in red. Kepler pressed his hand to his communication earpiece. Commander, the approaching vessels have increased speed. They'll be here in 30 minutes, not 4 hours. Elena checked her wrist device. Again. Right on schedule. You knew this would happen? Commander, the Devourers always send a fast response team when they detect new technology in a system. My ship's arrival just triggered their automatic protocols. Zixtal felt anger building in her chest. You used us as bait? I gave you advance, warning of an attack that was going to happen anyway. Now you get to see why your people classify my species as dangerous. Elena stood and walked to the briefing room's main viewport. In the distance, space itself seemed to be warping as the Devourer ships dropped out of whatever dimension they used for faster-than-light travel. Commander, you have a choice to make. You can waste time being angry with me, or you can watch. What happens when humans decide something needs to be eliminated? The Devourer ships were visible now, even without magnification. Massive, organic-looking vessels that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. Their hulls shifted and changed as they moved, adapting to conditions in real time. Those ships have destroyed everything we've sent against them, Velmar said quietly. Elena nodded. I know. We've been studying the battle reports, very impressive technology. The Devourers are excellent at adapting to conventional weapons and tactics. Then how do you plan to fight them? Elena touched her wrist device one more time. Who said anything about fighting them? Through the viewport, the Defiant began to move. It lifted off the landing platform without any visible thrust, rotated to face the approaching enemy fleet, and accelerated toward them at speeds that should have turned the ship into a smear of light. Captain, Zixtal said carefully, your ship is outnumbered 12-1. Elena's reflection in the viewport was smiling. Commander, you're thinking in terms of numbers. That's not how my people approach problems. The communication system crackled to life. Commander Zixtal, this is the Defiant. We are engaging the enemy. Please maintain safe distance and observe. What happened next would stay with everyone. in that briefing room for the rest of their lives. The Defiant didn't attack the Devourer ships, it dissected them. The Defiant moved through space like it was swimming through water instead of hard vacuum. It approached the lead Devourer ship, which immediately began firing every weapon it possessed. The creature-machine hybrid unleashed streams of energy that could melt mountains, launched projectiles that could crack moons, and deployed exotic weapons that warped space itself. None of it touched the human ship. How is it avoiding those attacks? Dr. Mothek breathed, his feathers standing on, and Elena remained standing at the viewport, calm as ever. It's not avoiding them, Doctor. It's deciding they don't apply to it. That's impossible, Zixtal said automatically. She had said that phrase so many times in the last few hours, it was becoming meaningless. Commander, your understanding of physics is based on what your species has observed and tested. My people have had considerably more time to observe and test. On the display screen, the Defiant had somehow positioned itself inside the Devourer ship's defensive perimeter. The alien vessel's weapons were now firing in all directions, trying to hit a target that appeared to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Is your ship teleporting? Velmar asked. Not teleporting, Elena replied. It's simply choosing to be in different locations. Space and time are more flexible than you realize once you understand the underlying mathematics. The Defiant stopped, moving entirely, hovering just meters away from the Devourer ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien vessel simply came apart. Not exploded, not destroyed. It disassembled itself into component pieces that drifted away from each other like someone had carefully taken apart a complex puzzle. The crew inside should have been killed instantly, but somehow they remained alive in their separate sections, trapped in bubbles of atmosphere that shouldn't have been able to exist. What did your ship just do? Zixtal demanded. It convinced the molecular bonds holding the ship together to stop working, Elena said matter-of-factly. The crew is unharmed. They're just temporarily inconvenienced. Lieutenant Kepler was monitoring communications from his station. Commander, I'm receiving surrender signals from the disassembled ship. The crew is requesting immediate rescue. Elena nodded. The Defiant will collect them shortly. First, we need to deal with the other 11 vessels. The remaining Devourer ships had formed a defensive formation and were advancing on the Defiant together. Their strategy was sound. Concentrate fire. Overwhelm the enemy's defenses through sheer volume of attacks. The human ship's response was to split into 12 identical copies of itself. The briefing room fell completely silent except for the hum of life support systems. Everyone stared at the display screen, which now showed 12 Defiants, each one moving independently to engage a different Devourer ship. Holograms, Dr. Mothek whispered hopefully. No, Doctor. Each ship is completely real and fully functional. We've found it more efficient to exist in multiple places when the situation requires it. Elena's casual explanation of impossible technology was beginning to make Zixtal's head hurt. How can one ship become 12 ships? The same way one thought can become 12 thoughts when you're trying to solve a complex problem. Reality is much more malleable than most species realize. The 12 Defiants engaged the 12 Devourer ships simultaneously. What followed was not a battle in any conventional sense. It was a demonstration. Each human ship used different methods to disable its opponent. One Devourer ship found its weapons firing backwards into itself. Another discovered that its hull had become transparent and was letting its atmosphere leak out slowly. A third ship simply stopped working entirely as if someone had turned off a switch. The most disturbing sight was the Devourer ship that began aging rapidly. Its hull developed centuries of corrosion in seconds, its weapons became ancient and brittle, and its crew aged decades in minutes before the effect was reversed, leaving them confused but unharmed. Are you killing them? Zixtal asked. No, Commander. We're teaching them. Teaching them what? That resistance is pointless. The Devourers are intelligent beings. Once they understand they cannot win, they will choose to surrender rather than be destroyed. Sure enough, surrender signals began coming from each disabled Devourer ship. The 12 Defiants moved to collect the crews. somehow creating atmosphere-filled transport bubbles that carried the alien beings safely between ships. Within 20 minutes, all 12 Devourer vessels had been neutralized and their crews taken prisoner. Not a single being had been killed, despite the fact that these same creatures had murdered billions of Council citizens over the past 3 years. The 12 Defiants merged back into a single ship and returned to the space station. Elena finally turned away from the viewport. Questions? Dr. Mothek was the first to speak. Captain, what we just witnessed violates every known law of physics. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. A ship cannot exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Time cannot be accelerated or reversed locally. Doctor, those aren't laws, they're suggestions, and suggestions can be negotiated with if you know the right words. What do you mean, negotiated with? Elena walked back to the conference table and sat down. Reality operates according to certain rules, but rules can be changed if you understand the underlying system well enough. My people learned to have conversations with physics itself. Zixtal sat down heavily in her chair. The day's events were overwhelming. Captain, I need you to be very clear about something. What exactly are humans? We're what we've always been, Commander. We're survivors. But we're survivors who decided that the universe's limitations were unacceptable. What does that mean? Elena was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Millions of years ago, my people faced extinction. A threat not unlike the convergence threatened to destroy everything we had built. We had a choice. Accept the limitations that made us vulnerable or transcend those limitations entirely. You transcended the limitations of physics? We transcended the limitations of everything, Commander. Physics, biology, mortality, distance, time. We became what we needed to become to ensure our survival. Velmar leaned forward. Are you still human? That's a philosophical question, Lieutenant. We retained our essential nature, our values, our commitment to protecting those who cannot protect themselves. But we evolved far beyond the biological constraints that once defined our species. Elena's wrist device chimed softly. She glanced at it, and her expression grew serious. Commander, I'm receiving a priority transmission from our deep space monitoring stations. What is it? The Convergence has detected what happened here. They're accelerating their timeline. Elena stood and activated her holographic display again. The star map appeared, but now it showed new movement patterns. The main Convergence fleet will arrive in this galaxy in 72 hours, not 18 months. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Zixtal felt ice forming in her veins. 72 hours? Yes, Commander. The Convergence has decided that any galaxy containing beings capable of defeating their scouts so easily must be eliminated immediately, before we can spread our influence further. Can you stop them? Elena's smile was different this time. Not pleasant or reassuring, but predatory. Commander, the Convergence is about to learn what happens when you threaten something my people have decided to protect. She touched her wrist device. Defiant to all human vessels. Authorization level Omega. Initiate Galaxy Defense Protocol. Full deployment authorized. Kepler looked up from his communication station. Captain, I'm not detecting any response to your transmission. You won't, Lieutenant. Human communications don't use electromagnetic radiation. We found it more efficient to simply think to each other across any distance. Elena began walking toward the door. Commander, I need to speak with your High Council immediately. Not through normal diplomatic channels, not through intermediaries. I need to address them directly within the next 6 hours. That's impossible. The High Council doesn't grant audiences to unauthorized. Commander, Elena interrupted gently. In 72 hours, the most destructive force this galaxy has ever encountered will arrive in your space. They will attempt to sterilize every populated world, beginning with the most populated ones. Elena paused at the door and turned back. Your High Council can either listen to what I have to say, or they can face extinction while maintaining their diplomatic protocols. I'll let them choose. She stepped through the door, then paused and looked back one more time. Oh, and Commander, you might want to prepare your people for some surprises over the next few days. The galaxy is about to become a very different place. As Elena disappeared down the corridor, Zixtal sank back into her chair. Through the viewport, she could see the Defiant preparing for departure. The ship that had single-handedly destroyed a Devourer attack force without firing a weapon. "Sir," Kepler said quietly, "should I begin preparing the Council communication request?" Zixtal looked at her young officer, then at the impossible ship outside, then at the holographic display still showing the approaching convergence fleet. "Yes, Lieutenant, and mark it as highest priority. Tell them that if they don't agree to this meeting, we might not have a galaxy left to govern." The High Council chamber had been built to impress. Floating in the center of a hollow moon, surrounded by stars visible through transparent walls, it was designed to make visitors feel small and humble. The 47 species of the Galactic Council sat in their designated areas, each group representing millions of worlds and trillions of beings. Captain Elena Martinez walked into the chamber like she owned it. Counselor Vextar, eldest of the ethereal beings and senior member of the Council, watched the human approach with interest. In his 3,000 years of life, he had seen many species come before the Council. Most were nervous, desperate, or arrogant. This human was simply confident. "Captain Martinez," his voice echoed through the chamber without need for amplification, "you have requested an unprecedented emergency session. Explain why we should listen to someone whose species is not recognized by this Council." Elena stopped at the center of the circular chamber and looked around at the assembled representatives. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner of the room without technological assistance. "Counselor Vexitar, honorable representatives, I'm here because in 68 hours, something is going to arrive in this galaxy that will attempt to exterminate every intelligent being within it. I'm here to offer you a choice in how you face that threat." Counselor Thexar of the militant hegemony leaned forward. "We have heard reports of your demonstration against the Devourer scouts. Impressive technology. But technology can be understood, reproduced, countered. What makes you think you can succeed where our combined fleets have failed?" Elena smiled. "Counselor, your fleets failed because you were fighting a conventional war against an unconventional enemy. You matched weapons against weapons. Tactics against tactics. My people don't fight that way." She touched her wrist device. The holographic display that appeared above the Council chamber was larger and more detailed than anything they had ever seen. It showed the galaxy in perfect three-dimensional detail, with every star system, every inhabited world, every fleet position marked in real time. "This is what the Convergence sees when they look at your galaxy," Elena continued. "Scattered civilizations, limited technology, predictable defensive patterns, easy prey. And what do they see when they look at humanity?" asked Counselor Yithal of the Aquatic Collective. The holographic display changed. Now it showed the same galaxy, but with thousands of additional markers scattered throughout. Ships, stations, worlds, and structures that hadn't been visible before. They see this. The chamber fell silent. Every representative stared at the display, trying to comprehend what they were seeing. The galaxy they thought they knew was revealed to be filled with hidden human activity. "How long have you been here?" Vextar asked quietly. "We've been watching over this galaxy for 2 million years, Counselor. We've been actively protecting it for the last 50,000. "Protecting us from what?" Elena gestured, and the display showed historical data. Threat markers appeared and disappeared throughout galactic history, most of them eliminated before they could reach Council space. 17 separate extinction-level threats, 12 interdimensional invasions, 31 plague ships, and countless smaller dangers. Most of them were eliminated before your species even detected their existence. Counselor Zephyr of the Silicon Confederacy spoke up. "Why? Why protect us if we didn't even know you existed?" "Because that's what intelligent species should do for each other. Because diversity makes the galaxy stronger. Because extinction is permanent, and we've learned that life is precious." Elena paused, letting her words sink in. "But mostly because we remember what it was like to face extinction alone." The display changed again, showing ancient images of Earth and the early human space colonies. 2 million years ago, my people faced a threat not unlike the Convergence. We were young, primitive by current standards, scattered across only a few dozen worlds. We should have been extinct within months. What saved you? Asked Dr. Kemrit of the Research Alliance. We refused to accept that extinction was inevitable. We decided that if the universe wanted to kill us, we would change the rules of the universe. Elena's words were spoken simply, but they carried a weight that made everyone in the chamber uncomfortable. We evolved, counselors. Not naturally, not slowly, but deliberately. We became what we needed to become to survive. We transcended every limitation that made us vulnerable. What do you mean by transcended? Vextar asked. We learned to exist outside the normal constraints of space and time. We developed technology that doesn't just use physics, it negotiates with physics. We became more than biological beings without losing our essential humanity. Elena gestured again, and the display showed current images of human civilization. Cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, ships that traveled by convincing space they were already at their destination, beings who appeared human but clearly existed according to different rules than everyone else. We became post-scarcity, post-physical, and post-mortal while retaining our values, our compassion, and our commitment to protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Counselor Thexer leaned back in his chair. Captain, what you're describing is impossible. No species can simply evolve beyond the laws of physics. Counselor, the laws of physics are descriptions of how reality normally works. But normal is a flexible concept when you understand the underlying mathematics of existence. Elena walked closer to the center of the chamber. The convergence operates on the assumption that all civilizations follow the same basic limitations. They expect conventional resistance, conventional technology, conventional thinking. They've destroyed thousands of galaxies using this assumption. And your people are unconventional? Counselors, when the convergence arrives, they will discover that this galaxy contains a civilization that has spent 2 million years preparing for exactly this kind of threat. They will learn that some species refuse to be limited by what others consider possible. The chamber was quiet for several minutes as the council representatives absorbed what they had heard. Finally, Vextar spoke. Captain Martinez, what do you want from us? Nothing. The simple answer surprised everyone. Nothing. Counselors, I'm not here to ask for your help. I'm here to offer you a choice about your own future. Elena activated her display one final time. It showed the approaching convergence fleet in detail that should have been impossible to obtain. In 68 hours, the convergence will arrive. They will begin by targeting the most populated worlds, attempting to cause maximum terror and disruption. They will expect your species to panic, scatter, and fight among yourselves, and if we don't, if you maintain unity and trust my people to handle the military aspects of this crisis, then this galaxy will survive. More than that, it will be permanently protected from future threats of this type. Counselor Yithal spoke up. What's the alternative? Elena's expression grew serious. The alternative is that my people will do what we always do when faced with extinction-level threats. We will ensure the survival of intelligent life in this galaxy, with or without your cooperation. What does that mean? It means, counselors, that we will take whatever actions are necessary to preserve this galaxy's civilizations, even if those civilizations don't agree with our methods. The implications of that statement sent a chill through the chamber. Vextar had lived long enough to recognize a polite threat when he heard one. Captain, are you saying you would act against our wishes? I'm saying that when faced with total extinction, my people prioritize survival over politics. We would prefer to work with you, but we will not allow this galaxy to be sterilized while we debate proper procedures. Elena looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. Counselors, you have a choice. You can trust humanity to protect you while maintaining your independence and self-governance. Or, you can refuse our help and discover what it means when a post-physical civilization decides that your survival is more important than your consent. She paused, letting that sink in. Choose quickly. The convergence will not wait for you to finish your deliberations. Vextar felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. In 3,000 years, he had never faced a choice with such enormous implications. Captain, if we agree to work with you, what happens to our sovereignty? You keep it, counselor. My people have no interest in governing others. We're protectors, not conquerors. And if we refuse? Elena's smile was sad, but determined. Then you'll discover that sometimes protection is not optional. Sometimes survival requires accepting help whether you want it or not. The chamber fell silent. 47 species, trillions of beings, countless worlds, all represented by the people in this room, all depending on the decision they were about to make. How long do we have to decide? Vexitar asked. Elena checked her wrist device. The Convergence fleet drops out of intergalactic travel in 67 hours and 34 minutes. My people need at least 12 hours to finalize our defensive preparations. That gives us 55 hours to decide the fate of galactic civilization. Counselor, some decisions can't wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes you have to choose based on the information you have and hope you chose correctly. The Council's decision came 54 hours later with less than an hour to spare. They chose trust. Commander Zixtal stood on the bridge of Defense Station Omega-7, watching something that would change her understanding of reality forever. The Convergence fleet had arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of intergalactic travel at the edge of the galaxy in a formation that stretched across multiple star systems. Each Convergence ship was the size of a small moon. There were thousands of them, all identical, all radiating the kind of malevolent energy that made looking at them feel like staring into an abyss. "Energy readings?" she asked. Lieutenant Velmar, his crystalline body flickering with nervous light, consulted his instruments. "Commander, each ship is generating more power than our entire defense fleet combined, and there are 4,732 of them." "Any response from the human fleet?" "Ma'am, I'm not detecting any human ships at all." Zixtal felt ice forming in her stomach. Had they been abandoned? Had humanity's promises been empty after all? The Convergence fleet began moving inward, heading directly for the most populated systems in the galaxy. Their formation was perfect, their coordination flawless. They moved like parts of a single massive organism. Then space began to change. It started small. Individual stars seemed to flicker, as if someone was adjusting their brightness. Empty regions of space began to glow with soft light. The background radiation of the universe itself seemed to shift and pulse. "What's happening to our sensors?" Kepler asked from his station. "They're working perfectly, Ensign. Reality is what's changing." The voice belonged to Captain Elena Martinez, who had somehow appeared on the bridge without using the doors, the transporters, or any visible method of arrival. "Captain," Zixtal spun around, "where is your fleet? The Convergence ships are almost at the outer colonies." Elena smiled that same calm, confident smile she had worn throughout this entire crisis. "Commander, you're thinking in terms of conventional warfare. Ships versus ships, weapons versus weapons. That's not how my people approach existential threats." She gestured toward the main display screen. "Watch." The Convergence fleet, which had been moving in perfect formation, suddenly stopped. Not slowed down, not decelerated. Every ship simply stopped moving simultaneously, as if they had hit an invisible wall. "What stopped them?" Velmar whispered. "We asked space itself to stop cooperating with them," Elena replied casually. As they watched, the Convergence ships began to struggle against whatever force was holding them. Their engines fired at maximum power, their exotic weapons discharged in all directions, but nothing worked. They remained frozen in place like insects in amber. "That's impossible," Zixtal said automatically. "Commander, you've said that phrase 17 times since we met. Perhaps it's time to expand your definition of possible." Elena touched her wrist device. "All human assets. Begin Phase 2. What happened next would be discussed and analyzed for generations to come." Every star in the galaxy began to pulse in synchronized rhythm, as if they were part of a vast communication network. The space between star systems filled with geometric patterns of light that formed and dissolved like living mathematics. Most shocking of all, beings began to appear throughout the galaxy. Humans, but clearly not limited by normal physical constraints. They materialized on worlds, in space, inside space stations, walking through walls and existing in multiple places simultaneously. How many humans are there? Dr. Mothek asked from his science station. Elena considered the question. That's difficult to answer, Doctor. We exist somewhat differently than you do. At last count, we had approximately 50 billion individuals, but each individual can exist in multiple locations, and we sometimes merge consciousness for complex tasks. 50 billion. But that would make you one of the largest civilizations in the galaxy. Doctor, we are the largest civilization in the galaxy. We have been for quite some time. On the display screen, the human response to the convergence began in earnest. It wasn't a battle in any conventional sense. It was a systematic dismantling of everything that allowed the convergence to exist. The first convergence ship didn't explode or get destroyed. It simply ceased to be a ship. Its matter was gently reorganized into basic elements. Its energy was redistributed harmlessly into the cosmic background radiation, and its crew was carefully relocated to a pocket dimension where they could exist safely while humanity decided what to do with them. You're not killing them? Zixtal asked. Commander, extinction is permanent. We don't make that choice lightly even for our enemies. The process repeated across the entire convergence fleet. Ship after ship was carefully disassembled at the molecular level, their crews relocated to safe containment, their weapons and technology analyzed and cataloged for future reference. But that wasn't the most impressive part. The most impressive part was what humanity did to prevent future invasions. Working in perfect coordination across the entire galaxy, human engineers began modifying the fundamental structure of local space-time. They created barriers that would prevent intergalactic travel, established monitoring systems that could detect threats from millions of light years away, and implemented safeguards that would automatically respond to any future invasion attempts. Captain, Velmar said quietly, are you fortifying the entire galaxy? Yes, Lieutenant. When my people decide to protect something, we protect it permanently. Elena walked to the main viewport and looked out at the stars, which were still pulsing in their synchronized pattern. The convergence was just one threat, among many. There are others out there, in other galaxies, other dimensions, other realities, but this galaxy will never be vulnerable to them again. What happens now? Zixtal asked. Now, Commander, your people continue living their lives. They explore, they grow, they learn, they build civilizations. My people continue doing what we've always done. Watching, protecting, ensuring that intelligence and diversity survive in a universe that often seems determined to eliminate both. Elena turned back to face the bridge crew. Nothing has to change for your species unless you want it to change. We're not conquerors or rulers. We're gardeners, tending a garden that happens to be galaxy-sized. Dr. Mothek looked up from his instruments. Captain, I'm reading some kind of dimensional distortion around the Convergence fleet's former position. That's just cleanup, Doctor. We're sealing the dimensional pathways they use to reach this galaxy. No one else will be able to use those routes. Ever? Ever. The word hung in the air like a promise and a threat combined. Lieutenant Kepler spoke up from his communications station. Captain, I'm receiving messages from across the galaxy. Every populated world is reporting the appearance of human guardians. They're saying they're there to help with anything that might be needed during the transition. Transition to what? Elena's smile was warm now, genuinely pleased. Transition to being a protected galaxy, Ensign. To never again having to fear extinction from external threats. To being free to develop and grow without worrying about cosmic predators. She began walking toward the exit, then paused and looked back. Commander Zixtal, your report on this incident is going to be interesting to write. What should I tell the Council? Tell them the truth. A dangerous human vessel entered your system without authorization, and because of that, their galaxy will survive for the next few billion years. Elena smiled one last time. Oh, and Commander, the next time someone tells you something is impossible, you might want to ask them who they think decides what's possible in the first place. She walked through the bridge's bulkhead wall as if it wasn't there, leaving behind a room full of beings whose understanding of the universe had been forever changed. Outside the viewport, the stars had stopped pulsing. They now burned with a steady, protected light, watched over by guardians who had decided long ago that extinction was not an acceptable outcome for intelligence in their universe. The galaxy was safe. It would remain safe. And somewhere in the vast network of human consciousness that spanned dimensions and realities, Captain Elena Martinez made a note in humanity's eternal records. Galaxy 7741 Theta successfully integrated into protection network. Local civilizations adapting well. No further intervention required for approximately 50,000 years. For humanity, it was just another day at the office. For everyone else, it was the day they learned they had never been alone, and never would be again. The dangerous human vessel had indeed entered the system without authorization, and the galaxy was better for it.